Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. Today, we are working on hook. Now, Joe, when you hear hook, what do you think?
I think about, what's his name?
Jerry Reed?
Jerry Reed.
I knew you were going to say that. There's a Jerry Reed song where he says, it's called the Alabama Wild Man. He's talking about, he was a guitar player, and he keeps going, hook it, boy, hook it, in the song. So anyway, hook. But this is based on the movie, not Jerry Reed. It ought to be based on Jerry Reed, but nobody's had the guts to make a Jerry Reed pinball yet. Okay, so a gentleman brought us this, and Joey talked to him. So he's going to tell us what the guy said. So what's going on with the hook, Joe?
He said the flippers do not work.
Okay.
He said he's replaced all kinds of stuff on there. He's changed boards. He's changed all this stuff on it. He says he can change parts with the best of them.
Yep.
He wants to make sure that we're not just part swappers.
Yeah, he doesn't want us to be part swappers.
And that we can actually fix this machine.
Okay.
I told him we could fix it.
We can fix it. We're going to fix it right here on this video. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to us if you haven't already. We're going to fix it. Okay, so the flippers don't work.
Yep.
All right, turn her on. Let's see what we got. Here we go. Hook. Hook. Hook it, boy. Hook it. Pan the man. Thud butt. Mr. Smee. Toodles.
I hate Peter Pan.
I hate Peter Pan. But remember, winners don't use drugs. Remember that, people. Okay. Boy, it's a pretty good looking machine. I've seen this one before, but I've never played it. All right, Joe, start her up. Let's see the flippers.
Won't start.
We have found our first problem. Push start, and it says it has 5 credits. All right, we're going to have to look at the start button or something. All right, that's first. So I'm going to take the glass off. We'll pull up the playfield and check out the start button. Okay, so we're going to mess with the start button. And a couple other things I've noticed, though, is that a lot of the general illumination isn't working. That a lot of times that's a burnt wire on the power supply, but we'll look into that. It may just be the bulbs are out or something. So that's that. But we're going to check out the start button. This is one of those games that whenever you lift it up, there's no bar to hold it. They put a chain in the game. So it's held up by a chain on an eye bolt on the back of the game. You trust that? If I put you down in here where your head's under it, you trust? We'll trust it. We'll see. Okay, so here is the start button. Someone has been tinkering with it. So apparently this has been an issue. But it looks like it's a new switch. So it might be wired wrong or something. If I can get it out of there. But it looks like the diode's on it. New diode, new switch. I wonder if there's another one. I can see if that's how it's supposed to be. Something similar. So these have the ground going to one side. That is not how this is. I don't know, people. It may be wired up wrong or something. We'll look into that too. Alright, so what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go into the test menu and try to go to the switch test. Okay, it went right into diagnostics. Tech alert, pinball missing. There's no pinballs in it. Can I get past that? I can't hit start, can I? left speaker, nothing. Display test, switch test, okay. Switch test. What did it say? Did it say something about the trough? I didn't catch it. Did y'all catch it? Okay, if I hit start, nothing. If I hit the outlane, left outlane, you can't see a damn thing, can you? Okay, if I hit the outlane, we'll get the left outlane. If I hit start, nothing. But we kind of already knew that, didn't we? But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to check the other things in the row and the column so we can see if it's just that switch. I'll show you how to do that. So this is how you tell if it's a problem with the board or not. This is the switch matrix chart in the game, in the manual. And the start button, they are calling the credit button. So it has a white and orange wire running to it, you just saw that, and a green and brown wire running to it, which is the column, and the white and the orange is the row. And so if there is a problem at the board with the row, then nothing that the white and orange wire runs to will work. So we need to see if the trough number 1 on the left switch works, if the right top lane works, if the left drop target number 3 works, if the right 3-bank bottom works, if the left 3-bank bottom works, if the upper left vertical up kicker works. So if any of those work, then you know that the board's fine because it can see that, but you might have a problem on this line somewhere if it doesn't, or several of them don't. And then the column, if the credit button will not work, maybe the plumb tilt, the fourth coin, the right coin, the center coin, the left coin, the slam tilt will. So we're going to go test some of those and see what it tells us. Okay, so let's try the coins. Right coin works just fine. Left coin works just fine. Start button will not work. So the column, the other ones on the column are working. So let's try ones on the row now. Okay, so on the row, one of them says right top lane. So the top lanes are down there, and it might be hard to get to. Center top lane. Right top lane does not work. Okay. It also says right 3 target bottom. So there are 3 targets here. Here's the bottom one. It does not work. Okay. And then I think it said left drop target 3, didn't it? 4. 3 didn't do anything. 2. 1. So, what's our problem? That whole row is out. That's our problem. Clunk, clunk, clunk. So it's a white and orange wire, and in the manual it says CN10 7. So what does that mean? Well, they're telling you what connector on the board to look at. So look at all these connectors. There's crap everywhere. So how do you know where to look? Well, it says right in the manual. Read the effing manual, right? CN10 and white and orange, and it says pin 7. So it actually has a little 1 down there too to help you out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is where the white and orange one is. It looks fine, right? Not so quick. What's different about the white and orange one? It's not in there very well. Those are insulation displacement connectors. Somebody's been messing with it. What in the world? So let's give it the old wiggle test. Yep. That's moving around. That ain't in there very good. Okay. Oh, what's that? The bottom drop target thing works now? What? See, the start button does. Credit button does. Alright, so we fixed it by wiggling the wire, right? No, silly, that didn't fix it. We just found it by wiggling the wire. We got to put a new connector on it. That damn thing ain't going to last. Come on, man. Come on, people. Come on. People, you can't just wiggle the wire. Come on, people. You just wiggled the wire. And look at this. Come on, people, come on now. Come on now, people. Look at, what the hell are you doing? People, you can't tape the wire to the, you tape the wire to the connect. People, come on now. The damn wire's taped to the connector. You can't, come on now, people. Come on, people. We got to stop. The people, the bullshit has got to stop. Come on, people. Okay, folks, so this is how we handle that kind of stuff. You cut the wires loose one at a time. Now, on this particular one, their wires come out both sides. So you actually have two wires once you cut it. And then we slide them in a brand new connector with brand new connector pins. So you might say, where can you get all of that stuff? There's a company called Great Plains Electronics that's very pinball centric, but they're just generic Molex parts and stuff. But we send people to Great Plains Electronics all the time because Ed runs that site and he makes things a little easier. So basically he'll have, this, the 5 different types of stuff that goes in this pinball machine and blah, 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 blah. So he sells a lot of connectors and pins and things like that. So that's a good place to go, Great Plains Electronics. And then what we do is we cut the wire loose, do them one at a time so you can remember where they go to transfer them over to the new connector, right? And then we use a crimp tool, and we buy just tons of these pins, okay? And the stuff like this, the crimp tool, some of the parts we use in our videos, you can see on our website. Go to lionsarcade.com, and there are links on there to some of this kind of stuff. But also check out Great Plains Electronics. If you go to our website on the parts page and you click any of those links to go to Amazon, basically anything you buy on Amazon after you've done that, even if it's a completely different part, it gives us a tip. So we appreciate everybody that's been doing that. But I'm putting them over one at a time into the plug, and then we will be able to put a new plug on it. But as you know, that's not all we got to do. Come on, people. Come on. Okay, folks, so I pulled the board out of the game so we can try to clean this up a little bit. I believe it was probably working like this. So a lot of times a trace will burn up or something on the board, and people will do stuff like this on the front of the board so they don't have to remove it from the game. But really, it only takes a couple minutes. You've got a whole bunch of plugs to unplug, and 8 screws that hold it in on the edges. So that's not that big of a deal. So I just went ahead and popped it out. I'm also going to check the flipper stuff while we're out, because remember what he said was going on was that the flippers weren't working. And he said that it's been doing this for a long time, and he can't figure it out, and he swapped a bunch of stuff, so we're going to figure it out. This guy's not a tech. This is just a homeowner doing the best he can. So, don't be too critical of this kind of stuff. It's, it is what it is, and it can be fixed easy enough. So it looks like what happened was maybe the trace burnt up or something down there. So I'm going to take this off, this jumper, and then we're going to look at what's going on with the trace, and then if we have to do a jumper, we'll do one on the back so it just looks cleaner. And having this tied from the trace to the connector makes it where you can't take the board out of the game. So we want to get it where whatever this is doing is connecting to the pin so that the connector can be removed from it, and you don't have to worry about cutting things and taping it back together and all that. So here is the back. Everything's pretty cool except the trace was gone here. The eyelet. And then here is the front. So there's an interesting little thing that we caught. I don't know if you could see earlier, but they had the wire soldered to this trace, the trace on the right that's messed up. Not this trace, but this trace. So they had the wire soldered to this trace, but it was connected on the plug to the wire that went to pin 3, or pin 7. The wire that went to pin 6 wasn't connected to anything. And the trace that was supposed to go to pin 7 wasn't connected to anything. So for whatever reason, they just put a jumper from this trace to this one. I guess they couldn't see that since it was burned up, I guess they couldn't see that the trace jogged over. So that means that an entire row of lights would have been out, and then the other entire row would have lit up at the wrong time. So if you hit like a target, instead of that light coming on, a light over on the other side of the playfield would have came on. And then some of the lights would have never came on. So we got to fix this up. So how are we going to do it? I'm going to put a new connector in. And then we're going to run a wire on the back from the actual pin of the connector up to the transistor. I checked, and those two traces are definitely broken. Now, I don't know what happened. It looks like they burnt up or something, but the transistors have never been replaced, and they test fine. So I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of physical damage that happened at some point. Who knows? All these are fine, but they don't appear to have ever been replaced. So there's the transistors. You tell me what you think. It's those two right there. Or those two. Am I on the wrong ones? We're on the wrong ones. Okay, it's this row here. It's those two right there. I don't know. Maybe they've been swapped. I don't know. So there's something going on. Okay, so we're going to put jumpers on the back. You know, I might be able to put them on the front just to make them smaller. Let me see if I can get cutesy with it and put them on the front, repair the traces. Either way, we'll get it fixed up, and then we'll be ready to put it back in the system, in the game. Alright, I was able to rebuild the traces with capacitor legs. If you don't know about that, whenever you swap capacitors on things, a lot of times, well, all the time, after you put the capacitor in, you cut the legs off, the extra part, and then they make perfect little jumpers and stuff. So I made one and just bent it where the old trace was, and then that one was a straight one, and then just put a little solder on each end, and then I've checked it with the good old meter, and it's making continuity, so that is fixed. So I'm going to put the connector back on it, and then we'll mess around with the flipper relay a little bit and see if make sure everything's cool with that. Okay, folks, so we're in the schematics, and the way that the flippers get turned on is the CPU itself actually turns them on with a relay. And so the way it does it is there's a solenoid ground that comes onto the board. I believe goes to other things too. And then there is a enable blank, not enable blank line that comes in, runs to a transistor, which turns on a diode, which turns on the relay, or, you know, goes through a diode that turns on a relay. The relay pulls in, which makes all four of these little connections connect inside of the relay, which connects solenoid ground to all four of those outputs, which then goes out as what they call flipper ground on connector 19, and I guess the ground for the flipper board, I guess maybe that is, optical flipper or something, or optional flipper, maybe. So it's you can have a game with 4 flippers on it. I think this one only has 2. So connector 19 and connector 20 are the outputs, and we need to see if they somehow get connected to ground. All I'm going to do is check this transistor here just to make sure it's not burnt up, but I can't read which one it is, so I have to figure it out by looking at the traces. So basically this 7402 here, this trace turns on this transistor, which is a 2N4401, and it makes the relay come on. When the relay comes on, it connects the little blades inside there and sends ground out. Connector 19, if I can figure out where in the world that is. This one. Here's the one that was, it said the optional flippers. It's not even populated. So that's what we're looking at. So the transistor tests fine, everything else looks fine. So, and this is, by the way, knock on fake wood. this is almost never the problem. So you usually don't have a problem with the relay being the flipper problem. The other thing that I wanted to look at that's kind of interesting is there's no batteries in the game, but the game is coined up and everything. So I wonder how they did that. This says Ramtron. Deal with it, people. It's upside down. You'll get over it. FM 1608-120-P, and then it says MO921140056G. Ramtron. So I guess that's like a, I'm just going to guess that that's a RAM that doesn't need a battery backup. Non-volatile. Is that what that means? NVRAM. So I'm going to Google that part number and see if that's what's going on. That's probably what's going on. So they've taken the original RAM out and put one in that doesn't need a battery. I think. We'll see if that's right. Okay, folks, we're back up and running. Here is the new connector. Looks good. Here is the one we repaired. Now, I didn't have to replace the connector because it was still on there well, and there is the wire cut right off. Everything's pretty cool. Didn't have to mess with it. Looks like we're good. Game is back up and running. Let me show you something neat. If you rewind the video, see how the skull eyes work now? They were not working before. And if you rewind the video, these were working, but at a weird time, and these were not working. It's because they had the wire on the wrong lead, and you see now that everything kind of looks like it makes sense and flows around. The light show is correct. So all of that, the guy didn't even ask us to do. He said that the flippers didn't work right. But we've done all that just to get the start button to work. So let's see if now the start button will work. Ball 1, credits 4. Nothing. Nothing. Not a thing. All our coils are dead. We got a blown fuse or something, people. Okay, let's see if we can track that down. It was user error. I had this plug disconnected on the PPU board because I took it loose when I was taking some of the other ones loose. So, turn the game off, plug that back in, turn the game back on, started the game, and it has kicked the ball out, but it's not playing any music. So there's some soundboard problems too, right? But I haven't checked the flippers yet. Let's see. Dead. Dead as hell. Let's see if any of the other stuff works. The diverter did. That takes a solenoid, you know. That time it did not. The kickback didn't do it. It says ready. Maybe it'll do it now. Oh, I waited too long. Boy, that's going to take a hell of a shot to get it up that. Yeah, so that swallowed it. It's not kicking it out. So we've got some coils not doing their thing. And we're quiet. That's weird. And it doesn't have a ball search apparently. Oh, it's trying something. Okay, well a lot of them are working. So the trough isn't working and the flippers don't work. All right, so we're going to check the flippers first. We'll figure out why the scoop's not working, but we'll check the flippers first. So the first thing that I want to do is figure out if the board, if that relay is actually turning on, because that's basically what the CPU does. It turns on that relay, which then allows the flippers to be grounded. And looking in the manual, the solenoid ground comes in here, which immediately attaches to the ground plane on the board. Okay, so what I've done is with the game turned on and in the game, I've got my voltage meter on the 5-volt test point. Okay, now why am I doing that instead of checking resistance? It's because you can't, it's not easy to check resistance when power is running through it. So if it's like a ground that's turned on and has voltage running through it, it doesn't work that good. But you can check voltage and see if that is a ground right now, right? So with that on the DC voltage test point, if I check between ground and the test point, I have 4.91 volts. It's supposed to be 5, so it's a little bit low, but it's not the end of the world. And it's obviously up and running. So if this relay is on, then it has connected, it should have connected the ground to these 2 orange wires. So if I check them, I am getting my voltage. Through both wires. So those are grounded right now because the relay is on. So I'm going to turn the game off. And right now we've got it in a track mode. It's not in the middle of a game, so the relay should not be on, right? So if I check it now,
I hate Peter Pan.
He hates Peter Pan. The flippers are on all the time, so I guess the relay is in as we speak. Interesting. Okay. So it's definitely not the relay. Now if I turn the game off, let's see if we can hear the relay come on. Was that the click we just heard? Trying to see if I can physically see it. Not so sure. Let's see if I can check resistance between ground and those pins with the game off. Yep, so solenoid voltage, and the test point has no resistance. But there is resistance between those the two orange wires and ground when the game is off, because the relay is not connecting it to ground. So the relay, for whatever reason, just comes on the whole time that the game is on, but doesn't necessarily enable the flippers. I believe it's because it has that separate flipper board. But what we were trying to figure out is, is the relay turning on, sending the ground to the flippers? And it is, apparently, the whole time that the game is up and running. So that part is not the problem. So next we're going to look at the power source for the flippers. So the initial voltage for the flippers comes from the PPB board, which is that big one on the back that has all of the fuses on it. And this fuse is blown, which is the flipper voltage fuse, so that would do it, right? So it takes AC in, goes through the fuse. There is a bridge rectifier, a cap, and a resistor, and it creates 50 volts that goes down to the flipper board that's in the bottom of the cabinet. But with that fuse blown, you ain't never going to be flipping. Ain't going to happen. So I'm going to swap in a new fuse and see if it blows again. And if it does, we're going to suspect this bridge rectifier. By the way, the flippers are all new. Like the whole assemblies have been replaced and everything. So we got something sneaky going on. So I'm going to pop in a fuse and then just turn the game on and see if it immediately blows the fuse, which it would if this bridge rectifier is bad. So it's this fuse right here. 5 amp slow blow. So let's pop it on and see if the fuse blows up. Yep, that'd do it, people. There's your problem. Probably going to be that bridge rectifier. So I'm going to pop that board out and we'll check it. So here is the famous PPB board. I like how they did this, though. They basically put all of the crap that might burn up on one big board. That's pretty cool. So there's this bridge here. We're going to test it. I'll show you how to test a bridge if you don't know. If you look on the side, bridge rectifiers, they turn AC into DC. And so you will have two of the pins labeled as AC. So it's this one. It says AC. That one says negative. And this one says AC, and that one says positive, right? So the way these are made, if you looked on the schematic whenever we were looking at it, it's just diodes. So these are just 4 diodes in a square, right? So you can check them by checking all 4 of the diodes. So the way you do that is you put your meter on diode check, and you put the negative lead on the positive. So you put the black on the positive. So you're doing it backwards. And then you check the voltage drop with the diode check between the positive, which the negative lead is on, and the AC line. So black here, red here, and see if it's shorted. And black here, red here, and see if it's shorted. Then that checked these 2 diodes. Then after that's done, you put the positive on the negative backwards, and you do the same thing between it and the AC, and it and the other AC, and that checks these 2 diodes. Let's try it. Okay, so here's the 4 leads of the diode. These 2 are AC. This is the negative, and this is the positive. So we're going to check between the negative. We're going to put the red lead on there. I'm going to do it with one hand like chopsticks so I can hold the camera. I get people all the time saying, buy a tripod. Well, people, if you watch my videos, I use a tripod at the end of them. That's obviously not the problem. Okay, so that diode is fine. We just checked that one. Let's check between this one and the other AC. That diode is fine. So that one and that one are just no problema, right? So now this is the positive. So we put the negative on the positive and the positive on the other AC. Well, it ain't looking too good, right? 3 out of 4 are just fine. Oh man, all 4 of them are fine. So now what? What's the problem? Well, there must be something downstream. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this board back in, and we're just going to plug in the input to the AC input, and leave the DC output unplugged. Something that 50 volt goes to is blowing the fuse. Back on the other side of the bridge. That's weird. Or maybe the bridge is failing under load or something. Okay, so I'm going to put it back in, and we're just going to hook up the input, the AC coming in. We're not going to hook up the DC output and then see if it still blows the fuse. It could be like the cap too, but it looks pretty good. I don't see a problem. I don't know. It looks pretty good to me. 100 microfarad, 160 volt. I'll swap it while I'm here just to make sure. But there's not much on here, and this only runs the 50 volt. I don't think it runs any of this other stuff. So I'll look on the schematics to make sure there's nothing else on this board that uses the 50 volt, and then we'll try it with just the input and not the output hooked up and see if it still blows the fuse. Okay, so I swapped the cap. Everything seemed cool, but I'm checking these big old transistors. Right, if it's between 0.4 and 0.7, everything's cool. The voltage drop. So that's Q1, right? Q2. Dead short. Okay. So what's going on is some of the solenoids use 50 volts, including the flippers. Some of the solenoids use 34 volts, which is a separate supply. So Q2 is shorted, which is what's blowing the fuse, because this is using 50 volt. So they have these 5 huge ones on here to handle really powerful coils. So in the manual it shows you which one's which. So 32 volts comes to this line, does the trough eject, the out hole, right? But this top line is the 50 volts. So the left vertical up kicker uses 50 volts. Something called the big kick uses 50 volts. I'm excited about the big kick. Okay, scrolling back through them. Something called the laser kick runs off 50 volts. The knocker runs off 50 volts. And the power scoop runs off 50 volts. So if we go down here and see which one uses Q2, it is Q2, violet and yellow. What a time for the schematics to be broken. Okay, violet and yellow. It's the one called the big kick. So it's the one with a violet and yellow wire going to it. That coil, it may be bad, and it may have shorted out that transistor, which is causing all the problems. So let's find the big kick with the violet and yellow wire going to it. So on the right side of the playfield is a coil with a violet and yellow wire running to it. And it looks like some stuff's been going down, and it is seized up. Will not pull in. Either this is stuck at the pivot and it burned itself up trying to pull it in, or it burned itself up and the plastic is melted inside of it so the plunger can't physically go in. There's our problem. So what do we need to do? We need to replace that coil that's burnt up. We need to replace the transistor on the board, and that should get everything working again, and it won't blow the 5 volt fuse, the 5 amp fuse for the 50 volts. So let's see if I've got that coil. I don't know. I might have one. I'll look around, and then I got to see if I've got that transistor. That's a big old transistor. You could do something cutesy like, oh, I don't know, still the knocker, and then on the PPB, still the transistor for the knocker. Like, if you wanted to be cheap, you could do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just giving you options. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so let me see if I've got a coil and if I've got that transistor. I don't think I'm going to have either one of them, but we can order them. Well, folks, I had a replacement one, but the leads were a little shorter, but it's in there pretty good, right? This is our bad one. So the only thing is, this is turned on by a transistor on the CPU. Ugh. And I forgot to check them all before I put the CPU back in. So I'm going to go try to check them in the machine just to see if they're shorted, if any of them shorted. The one that drives this may be shorted, but probably not. That one was so catastrophically screwed up that it was probably blowing the fuse every time. This is also a neat thing. Somebody sent me this. This is like a little circuit breaker. That's a 5 amp circuit breaker that someone has attached to a blown fuse. So you basically you put it in. If you're having a problem where the fuse keeps blowing, you can put that in and it'll blow the circuit breaker instead of burning up fuses over and over again. It's kind of cool to use to troubleshoot. It needs to be the right size though. That's a 5 amp. And it's supposed to be a 5 amp. But that's cool. Also, I found that F3 was blown, which is the fuse for one of the fuses for the GI, general illumination. So I put a new one in it. We'll see if that blows whenever we plug it in too. This is the new one. I ran out of the ones that are glass that you can see in. So I put the new one up here so that I can see if this one blows immediately. This one shouldn't blow because blah, blah, blah. But anyway, just trying to do it where you can visualize it. Okay, so I'm ready to put this back in, and then I'm going to look at the coil, and then also we're going to test on the CPU to see if the transistor that drives this transistor is also shorted. Hopefully not. Wah, wah, wah. I had to pull the board back out. You can't test them, well, you can't easily test them in the game. And sure enough, there were 2 transistors burn up. One of them, in fact, pre-drives that big transistor, the tip 36C, that turns on the big kick. And it's shorted. So, it may have shorted, it's a tip 122. It may have shorted, which shorted the other one, which burnt up the coil, which blew the fuse, which then made it where the flippers won't work. So the guy said, hey, my flippers don't work. He would notice that before he would notice the big kick not working, because the balls won't, you know, you wouldn't be, you know what I mean. Also, the scoop underneath runs off the same 50 volts. This all makes so much sense now. Okay, and then another one was burned up. So what's that? That one runs flashers only. So it just, when this turns on, when the board turns this on, flashers flash. So there's probably 4 or 5 flashers somewhere in the game that are burnt up because they locked on and burn up. But now I think we're getting somewhere, right? I think we're getting somewhere now. Now there are also these little tiny transistors here that pre-drive these, and then these sometimes pre-drive the big ones, right? So I got to check all these too, just to make sure none of them are bad, and then we can put it back in the game. So I took the coil off too, by the way. And the reason it wouldn't pull in is because the plastic melted in the middle, so the plunger couldn't go in. So if I took the coil off, you know what must have happened, right? I mean, you know, you can tell why I must have took the coil off, right? Because I mean, the only reason, if you think about it, the only reason that I would have just think about it. If I took the coil off, see here, if the coil is burnt up and I took it off, I must have been doing that because, you know why I would have went through the trouble. I mean, you know what must have, you know what I must have found. I mean, I'll show you. Yeah, that's right. I found a brand new coil. Check it out. Have you ever seen anything so beautiful? Look at coils too. The big kick has a big coil. Brand new, baby. Didn't even have to order it. All right. So we got the new coil in there. We're going to put the CPU back in, the MPU back in. We're going to see if it blows the fuse. And then we're going to see if the flippers work. Cross your fingers. The board is back in with our new tip 102s. By the way, if you're replacing a tip 122, you can use a tip 102. It's just a beefier version. Okay? Our Q2 is back in, has been replaced. I got a fuse in there. I swapped it with one of the clear ones so that we could see, you know. Okay, so let's see. Boy, I like that. Didn't blow the fuse, and it didn't blow the general illumination fuse that was blown. Uh-huh. Check it out. Got our lights back. Remember I was showing you at the beginning of the video?
I hate Peter Pan.
I hate Peter Pan. What do you think? Think it's going to work? Did it blow a fuse? Wow, we're getting there. You see what's going on? It'll flip, but it won't hold. I think on these they use 2 different voltages. Also, the sound is still screwed up. Let's see if this kickback works now. It does. Very cool. Okay, so we still got some issues though. So we got to figure out why the flipper hold won't work. Let's see if our scoop works now. There's our big kick. No, that isn't our big kick. The big kick is over here. The big kick works. All right, so we got to figure out why the flippers won't hold up, and we got to figure out what's up with the sound. Sounds like it does some sound effects, but it doesn't do background music and stuff. So, but we're definitely getting there.
I hate Peter Pan.
Okay, folks, so we've got half of what he wanted fixed, and we fixed 2 things that he didn't know that he wanted fixed. So we'll have to stop for there. We'll have to stop there for today. Just too complex of a fix, right? So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think so far. We'll do another video where we finish up the flippers and work on the sound a little bit, and then put it back together and play it. Of course I'll play it, but I can't play it now. The flippers don't work right. The sound doesn't work. If I played it now, it wouldn't give you an accurate representation of what the gameplay is actually like. People, I can't do that. So we have to keep testing it, and then we'll get it though. Don't worry about it. It's coming. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Thank you to everybody that's been subscribing to us lately. Our numbers have been going through the roof. Did you know that? Through the roof. And also, make sure to check out our brother's channel, my brother Donnie. If you don't know about that, that's literally our brother, my brother, your brother too. If you like watching us work on these old arcade games and pinball machines, you'd probably like watching us work on old buildings. He and I have bought a couple buildings in a small town near here that we're fixing up, and lots of fun doing that. So check that out. Now I want to show you one last thing. To those of you who are the loyal subscribers that watch all the way to the end, a lot of people won't get to see this, right? But you'll get to see it because you always hang around to the end. Lethal Weapon 3. See how that just locks on? I think that's a problem too. But let me show you what we got in at the shop. You'll think this is pretty cool. Our buddy Matt, the arcade game guy that comes by, he has a silkscreen shop. And he finally made us some t-shirts here at our shop that we can sell. We sell them online, like on Teespring and stuff too, but we finally have our own t-shirt here in the shop. So we're selling those for 20 bucks. So if anybody wants a t-shirt, this special limited edition one, you can email us, and I'll get Joey to mail you one. They're 20 bucks, and I think he said he'd ship them for 5 bucks. So if you're looking for one, let us know. But this is our first actual shirt that we've had here in the shop that's not the Teespring thing. So if you're interested in that, email us. But we'll get back on the hook soon. Now, you know what's really going to happen, right? What's really going to happen is I'm going to walk over there and start the video right now, but you won't be here. So you'll have to just wait and be patient. Usually within, 2 days or so, the next video comes out. So I'll see you then. Have a good evening.